The cafe was not quiet that evening. Voices mixed together, chairs moved, and the smell of alien food filled the air. A man named Daniel sat alone at the corner table, tired from a long shift at the docking yard. He wore a plain jacket, stained with oil and dust, his hair messy from the work of the day. In front of him sat a plate of half-eaten food, steam rising slowly into the air. He lifted his fork again, chewing slowly, thinking only about finishing and going home. Then he heard it, a small voice, soft, almost shaking. "Can we have your leftovers?" Daniel froze, his fork halfway to his mouth. He lowered it slowly and looked up, expecting to see beggars. Maybe some street kids looking for food. What he saw instead made his heart beat faster. 4 children stood near his table, their clothes torn and dirty, their faces pale. But what caught his eyes were their eyes, bright, glowing, shining with a strange blue light. Like stars trapped in glass, they did not blink like normal children. Their eyes stayed fixed on him, full of hunger and hope. Daniel looked around the cafe. Surely others had noticed them, but no, nobody looked their way. The customers continued eating, laughing, and talking as if the children did not exist. It was strange, too strange. And Daniel felt the weight of silence pressing against him. "Leftovers," he repeated quietly. The oldest of the children, maybe 12 years old, nodded politely. "Yes, please," she whispered, her voice almost breaking. The younger ones clutched her sleeve, their faces thin and scared. Their blue eyes shone brighter as they looked at the food on his plate. Daniel's first thought was that they were sick, maybe infected with something. But no, their eyes did not look sick, they looked alive, glowing with energy he could not understand. He pushed his plate forward slowly. "Here," he said. "Take it." The children moved quickly, sitting down without asking. They picked up the pieces of bread and meat, eating as if they had not eaten in days. Daniel watched in silence, his hands resting on the table. He should have been annoyed, but something about them made him feel protective instead. As they ate, Daniel noticed something strange. The glow in their eyes seemed to grow stronger. Their pale skin gained a little color, and their shoulders straightened. It was as if the food gave them more than just strength. It gave them power. Daniel leaned back in his chair, uneasy. He whispered under his breath, "What are you?" One of the children, a boy no older than 10, stopped eating and looked at him directly. The boy's glowing eyes locked onto Daniel's, and he whispered back, "We are hungry." Daniel's stomach turned. Something in that voice felt heavy, almost too old for a child. The boy returned to his meal, but Daniel could not stop thinking about it. Hungry, yes, but hungry for what? Food alone or something else? The cafe door opened with a loud hiss. A cold breeze swept through and Daniel shivered. 2 men in black uniforms walked inside, scanning the room with sharp eyes. Daniel noticed the children freeze, their hands stopping mid-bite. The oldest girl grabbed the youngest child's arm, whispering something too soft for Daniel to hear. Daniel felt his heart beat faster again. The children's glowing eyes dimmed slightly as if they were trying to hide. The men in black moved to the counter, speaking with the owner. Daniel saw the girl's lips trembling, her blue eyes filled with fear. For the first time, Daniel realized he was part of something larger. This was not about leftovers, this was about survival. The children had not chosen him by chance, they had chosen him because they needed him. He swallowed hard, the food was gone now, the plate empty. The children wiped their mouths with their sleeves, but their eyes stayed on him. The oldest girl leaned forward and whispered, "Thank you, human." Daniel froze. Human? In this spaceport city filled with dozens of alien species, nobody ever called him that. Not like that. Not with such sharp meaning. How did they know he was human? And why did it matter before he could ask? The youngest child tugged at his jacket. "Please," the boy whispered. "Don't let them take us." Daniel turned slowly, his eyes falling again on the 2 men in black uniforms. They were watching now, their eyes narrow, their hands close to their weapons. The cafe suddenly felt too small, too hot, too dangerous. Daniel's thoughts spun fast. He had no reason to get involved, no reason to risk anything. But when he looked at the children, their glowing blue eyes full of fear, he felt something he could not explain. The choice stood before him like a wall. Stay quiet and walk away, or stand up and protect them. Daniel took a deep breath, his hands curling into fists. The encounter had begun, and nothing in his life would ever be the same again. Daniel sat frozen in his chair, his empty plate pushed aside. The children had eaten everything, but their eyes still glowed, still burned with that strange blue light. They looked stronger than before, yet they still looked hungry. Not hungry in the way of normal children, but hungry in some deeper way, a way Daniel could not understand. The oldest girl glanced at him, her lips trembling as if she wanted to speak. But before any word could come, the youngest boy whispered again, "We need more." Daniel's eyebrows pulled together, his voice low and uncertain. "More food?" The boy shook his head slowly, and Daniel felt the air grow heavy. Outside the cafe window, neon lights flickered, throwing blue and red shadows across the room. The two men in black uniforms still stood by the counter, sipping drinks they had not ordered, eyes always scanning. Daniel realized he had no time to ask questions. Still, he leaned closer, whispering, "What do you mean, more?" The children lowered their heads, their shoulders pressed close together, like animals hiding from a storm. Finally, the oldest girl spoke, her voice soft and steady. "We cannot live without it. Human. We need energy, we need food, real food. Not what they gave us in the cages." Daniel felt his chest tighten. Cages. The word hit him like a stone, so it was true. These children were not normal beggars. They were runaways, escapees from something far darker. He studied their glowing eyes again, the way they pulsed brighter with every bite they had taken. It was not just eating, it was charging, as if the food became power inside them. He wanted to ask more, but one of the younger girls suddenly coughed, a weak sound that shook her whole body. Her blue eyes flickered dim. Like a dying flame, the others held her close, panic flashing in their glowing stares. Daniel felt something inside himself move, something he had not felt in years. Pity, no, more than pity, a kind of responsibility. He stood up, grabbing the plate, walking quickly to the counter. The cafe owner raised a brow. "Finished already?" Daniel dropped a handful of credits onto the counter. "Another plate." "Hurry." The owner shrugged and began preparing more food. Daniel's hands shook as he waited, his eyes darting between the children and the men in black. Every second felt longer, every shadow felt closer. Finally the food came, hot steam rising from it. Daniel grabbed the plate and rushed back to the table. The children did not wait. They fell on the food as if it was life itself. They chewed fast, too fast, their glowing eyes brightening with each swallow. Daniel leaned close, whispering, "Slow down. You'll choke," but they did not listen. They could not listen. The hunger was too strong. The glow around them grew brighter now, faint lines of light crawling across their skin like veins of fire. Daniel stared, his heart racing. No normal child could look like this. No normal human could eat and shine like a living star. He felt fear, yes, but also wonder. Who were they? What were they? And why were they here begging for leftovers in a cheap cafe? When the food was gone again, silence fell. The children breathed heavy, wiping their mouths with shaking hands. The youngest boy looked at Daniel with glowing tears in his eyes. "Thank you," he whispered. "You saved us." Daniel shook his head, still confused. "Saved you? From what, from hunger?" The boy's lips trembled, his words quiet but sharp. From death. Daniel felt the floor drop under him. Death. How could a few bites of food mean the difference between life and death? But the way the children stared at him, the way their glowing eyes shone like tiny stars, he knew they were telling the truth. The cafe door hissed open again, another cold draft sweeping inside. This time Daniel did not look. He did not need to, he could feel it. Danger was coming closer. The oldest girl leaned across the table, her whisper almost shaking. "They will not stop until they take us back. Human, please, you must help us just for tonight. Please." Daniel's heart pounded in his chest, his mind screaming to walk away, to let this go. He was a simple man, a dock worker, not a fighter, not a hero. But when he looked at their thin arms, their glowing blue eyes full of fear and hope, he felt that same weight again, that invisible pull. He rubbed his forehead, whispering back, "Why me?" The girl's answer was simple yet heavy. "Because you saw us." Daniel froze. Yes, it was true. The other customers in the cafe had never looked at the children, never noticed them. It was as if they were invisible to everyone but him. Why only him? Before he could ask, the men in black uniforms stood, their boots echoing on the cafe floor. The children tensed, clutching each other, their glowing eyes dimming to a faint shimmer. The oldest girl whispered one last time, her voice like a blade of fear, "If they take us, we will die." Daniel swallowed hard, his hands curling into fists again. The hunger was not over. It was only the beginning, and now, he realized, their survival might depend on him. The cafe was growing louder, but Daniel heard nothing except the sound of his own heartbeat. The men in black uniforms moved slowly across the floor, their dark boots striking the tiles like heavy drums. The children pressed closer together, their glowing blue eyes flickering like candles caught in the wind. Daniel could feel their fear. He could almost taste it in the air. He knew one wrong move and everything would break apart. The youngest child tugged his sleeve again, whispering with a trembling voice, "Please, do not let them see us," Daniel whispered back. "They already see you." The oldest girl shook her head quickly, her blue eyes shining brighter. "No, not like you see us. To them we are shadows. To you we are real." Daniel felt a cold shiver run down his spine, his mind struggling to understand. The men in black stopped near the counter, pulling out a strange device. It hummed with a sharp metallic sound. Scanning the room, Daniel saw the children flinch, their glow dimming as if the machine was pulling something from them. The oldest girl clenched her fists and whispered, "They are hunters, they smell our light, we must hide." "But our hunger made us weak." Daniel leaned closer, his voice rough with fear. "What are you talking about? What are you?" The girl met his eyes, and for a moment Daniel thought he saw stars swirling deep inside her pupils. "We are not supposed to exist," she whispered. "We were made in the labs, half of human, half of something else. We are the children of experiments. We are broken things that escaped." Daniel's breath caught in his throat. Experiments, cages. It all made sense now, their glowing eyes, their desperate hunger, their strange power, he whispered. "Made? By who?" The girl looked down, her hands shaking. "By those who call themselves our fathers, the scientists. The ones who sold us to the war machines." Daniel felt his stomach twist. These were not beggars, not orphans, they were creations. Property stolen from some hidden project. And now hunted, they were running for their lives. He looked at their thin arms, their small shoulders, and anger burned inside him. How could anyone call these children weapons? The device at the counter beeped, a sharp sound that cut through the noise of the cafe. The men in black turned their heads toward Daniel's corner. Their eyes narrowing, the children gasped, their glow pulsing in fear. "They found us," the youngest boy whispered. His voice breaking like glass, Daniel stood quickly, blocking the children with his body. He grabbed the empty plate and held it like a shield. Though it was useless, the men in black began walking closer, their eyes locked on the glowing children hiding behind him. Daniel's heart raced, his mind screamed to run, but his feet stayed planted. "Not here," the girl whispered. "Not in front of everyone. They will wait until we are outside. Then they will take us back to the cages." Daniel clenched his jaw, his voice low. "And if I walk away?" Her answer was simple, her words heavy with truth. "Then we die, and you will never forget our eyes." The weight of her words crushed him. He wanted to leave, he wanted no part of this nightmare. But something inside him, something deep, refused to let go. Maybe it was the way they called him human. Maybe it was the way their small hands shook as they clung to each other. Or maybe it was simply because he could not stand the thought of children suffering in silence. Daniel bent down, whispering quickly, "Tell me what to do." The girl's glowing eyes met his, filled with fear and trust at the same time. "There is a ship. Hidden in the old docks, it waits for us, but we cannot reach it alone. Please, will you guide us?" Daniel swallowed hard. "The docks are full of patrols." "You will be caught," the girl shook her head. "Not if you are with us. They do not see you as they see us. You can walk where we cannot. You are our cover. Our chance." Daniel looked toward the door. The men in black now only steps away. He could smell the faint metallic scent of their weapons. He turned back to the children, their glowing eyes staring at him with desperate hope. And he knew his choice was already made. He stood tall, pulling his jacket tighter. "Stay close to me," he whispered. "Do not run unless I run first." The children nodded quickly, their glowing eyes shining like tiny lanterns. Daniel took a deep breath, his hands trembling, and began walking toward the door. The men in black shifted, watching him, but they did not move to stop him, not yet. As Daniel reached the door, he whispered one last question. "Why me? Why am I the only one who can see you?" The girl answered softly, her words almost like a secret prayer. "Because you are human, and humans are different. They fear us, but you are the key to our escape." The door opened with a hiss, and the cold night air wrapped around them. Daniel stepped outside, the children pressed close behind him, their glowing blue eyes shining brighter in the dark. The secret was out now, and Daniel knew there was no turning back. Whatever these children were, Whatever they carried inside them, their fate had become his fate too. The cold air outside the cafe bit into Daniel's skin. The neon lights of the spaceport city flickered above. Painting the wet ground with red and blue shadows, the children stayed close behind him, their glowing blue eyes hidden beneath lowered heads. But even with their faces down, they glowed faintly in the dark, like lanterns that refused to die. Daniel's footsteps echoed against the narrow street. He tried to walk steady, casual, but his heart raced like a drum behind him. He heard the cafe door open again, boots stepping onto the street. The men in black had followed. "Keep walking," Daniel whispered without turning. "Do not look back." The children obeyed, their small hands clutching his jacket. Daniel scanned the street ahead, searching for escape routes. Shadows stretched long across the alleys. Machines hummed in the distance, and patrol drones buzzed overhead. The city never slept, but right now it felt empty. Too empty. Daniel knew that emptiness meant danger. Hunters preferred silence. Hunters created silence. He turned a corner sharply, pulling the children with him. The narrow alley smelled of rust and oil. Broken pipes dripped water that splashed onto the cracked floor. The youngest boy slipped, but Daniel caught him quickly, holding him steady. "Stay quiet," he whispered. "They are close." The sound of boots grew louder. Heavy, measured. The hunters were not running. They did not need to run. They moved like predators, confident their prey had nowhere to go. Daniel's chest tightened. He knew they were right. The oldest girl whispered, her voice trembling. "We should use our light. We can blind them." "We can fight." Daniel shook his head sharply. "No, not here, not yet. If you use your light, the whole city will know, and more will come." The girl bit her lip, holding back tears, but she nodded. Daniel knew she hated the order, but she understood. The group slipped deeper into the maze of alleys. Every turn felt the same, every wall stained with the same dark rust. Daniel tried to remember the way to the old docks. He had worked there years ago, but the city had changed since then. He prayed his memory would not fail him now. Suddenly a drone swooped low above them. Its red eye scanning, the children froze. But Daniel grabbed a piece of broken pipe from the ground. With one quick swing, he smashed the drone against the wall, sparks flying as it crashed to the floor. The children gasped softly, their glowing eyes wide. Daniel dropped the pipe, whispering, "Move! Faster!" The sound of boots grew sharper now, faster, the hunters had heard. Daniel's pulse raced, his breath short. He pulled the children into another alley. This one narrower, darker. The walls closing around them. The oldest girl stumbled, falling to her knees. Daniel turned quickly, lifting her up. Her glowing eyes dimmed weakly, her body shaking. "I am sorry," she whispered. "The hunger is strong again." Daniel gritted his teeth. "Not now, you must hold on." He pulled her arm over his shoulder, helping her walk. The children's glowing eyes flickered like dying lights. Daniel realized the chase itself was draining them, their strange bodies burning energy too quickly. They were not just running from the hunters, they were running from their own weakness. Behind them, voices rang out, sharp and commanding. "Stop! Do not resist." Daniel's stomach dropped. They were closer now. The hunters had entered the same alley. "Run!" Daniel ordered, pushing the children ahead. He turned, grabbing a loose crate from the ground and hurling it into the path of the hunters. The crate shattered, slowing them only for a moment. But Daniel used that moment to follow the children deeper into the shadows. The alleys twisted again, finally opening to a wider street lit by broken lamps. The children gasped, pointing ahead far in the distance. The towering cranes of the old docks rose like skeletons against the night sky. "There," the girl whispered, hope flickering in her glowing eyes. "The ship is there." Daniel felt a surge of determination. They were close, closer than he had dared hope. But the hunters were still behind, and their boots still echoed in the dark. He pushed the children forward, his voice harsh. "Go! Do not stop until you see the ship." They ran, their glowing eyes shining brighter as the docks drew near. But Daniel's heart warned him this was not over, not even close. As they reached the edge of the street, a shadow moved from the side alleys. More men in black stepped out, blocking the path. Their weapons glimmered under the broken lights, their cold eyes fixed on the children. The hunters had planned this. They had herded them here like prey into a trap. The children stopped, trembling, their glowing blue eyes bright with fear. Daniel stood in front of them, his fists clenched, his chest heaving. The oldest girl whispered, "We cannot run anymore." Daniel looked at her. Then at the hunters surrounding them, he whispered back, "Then we fight." The night grew still. The hunters raised their weapons, and the children's blue eyes began to glow brighter. Brighter than ever before. The chase was over, but the real battle was just beginning. The hunters stood in the broken street, their black uniforms shining under the weak neon lamps, weapons raised, eyes sharp. They formed a wall between Daniel, the children, and the old docks that stretched beyond. The cranes in the distance looked so close, yet impossibly far. The children trembled behind Daniel, their glowing blue eyes bright with fear and anger. Daniel's chest rose and fell in heavy breaths. He had no weapon, no plan, only the burning thought that he could not let these children be taken. The oldest girl whispered, her voice shaking, "They will not let us go. Human, they want us alive, but alive only for the cages. Alive only for their machines." Daniel clenched his fists tighter, his jaw hard. "Then we must break through." The hunters stepped closer, their boots scraping against the ground. One of them spoke, his voice deep, metallic, almost inhuman. "Hand over the subjects and you may live." Daniel felt rage rise inside him. Subjects. They did not see children, they saw experiments, property, things. The youngest boy tugged Daniel's sleeve, whispering with tears glowing in his blue eyes. "Please, we cannot go back, please." Daniel swallowed hard, his mind racing. There was no way through. Not with fists, not with speed, not with anything he had, unless... He turned quickly to the oldest girl, whispering, "Can you do it? The thing you spoke of, can you use your light?" The girl's glowing eyes widened, fear mixing with hope. "If we use it, they will know, more will come. The whole city will burn with their machines." Daniel gritted his teeth. "If you do nothing, you will never leave this street." The hunters raised their weapons higher, the air filled with the sharp whine of energy charging. The girl looked at her brothers and sister, their glowing eyes full of terror, then full of trust. She nodded once, her small hand gripping Daniel's sleeve. "Then stand behind us, human, and do not look at the light." Daniel stepped back, shielding the smallest child as the three older ones moved forward. Their glowing eyes blazed brighter, so bright the shadows ran from them. The hunters shouted, weapons firing, beams of red light cutting through the night. But before the blast could hit, the children screamed together, their voices ringing like broken glass. Blue light exploded from their eyes, flooding the street with blinding fire. Daniel threw his arm over his face, the force shaking his body, the air humming with strange energy. The hunters staggered, their weapons flickering, their armor cracking under the glow. The ground shook, walls cracked, neon lights burst into sparks. Daniel felt the youngest boy clutch his hand, whispering through the storm, "Run, now." He pulled the boy close and ran forward, the blue light burning at his back. The hunters cried out, blinded, stumbling, their weapons useless in their hands. The children's glow carved a path through the blockade, forcing the hunters back step by step. Daniel dragged the boy, shouting to the others, "Move! Move now!" The three glowing children stumbled after him, their bodies trembling with the effort. They had power, yes, but it was power that cost them. Every step looked heavier, every breath shorter. Still, they moved, still, they burned. The group broke free from the street into the wide docks. Massive cranes rose like dead giants, their shadows stretching across the steel ground. Broken cargo containers lay scattered. The smell of oil and salt filled the air. And somewhere among these ruins, the children's ship waited. Behind them, the blue light dimmed, fading as the children collapsed to their knees. Their glowing eyes flickered weakly, almost going dark. Daniel ran back, helping them up. "Not here, you must keep going. We are not safe yet." The oldest girl shook her head, tears falling down her glowing cheeks. "We used too much. We cannot hold it again." Daniel gripped her shoulders, forcing her to stand. "Then lean on me, but do not stop." "Do not stop now." The sound of boots echoed again. The hunters were not destroyed, only slowed. More shadows moved at the far end of the docks. Reinforcements arriving, their weapons glowing red in the dark. Daniel's heart pounded like thunder. The children stumbled forward with him, their steps heavy, their eyes weak. Daniel searched desperately among the containers, scanning for any sign of a ship. "Where is it?" he whispered harshly. "Where?" The girl pointed weakly to the far corner where a large container stood half open. "It is hidden there, behind the steel walls." "Our ship is inside." Daniel pushed them forward, his arms burning with the weight of carrying two of the children. The hunters shouted behind them, energy blasts striking the ground, metal exploding into sparks. Daniel kept running. The ship was so close now, just beyond the container wall, but his legs burned, his chest ached, and the children's small bodies felt heavier by the second. Finally, they reached the container, Daniel pushing aside the steel doors with every ounce of strength. Inside, under the shadow of the crane, stood a small craft, old and battered but alive. Its faint blue lights flickered, waiting. The children gasped with relief, their glowing eyes shining brighter for a moment. "This is it," the girl whispered. "Our freedom." Daniel pushed them inside, his chest heaving. But as the last child stepped onto the ramp, a sharp blast struck the metal near his head. He turned quickly, the hunters closing in, weapons glowing, their faces hard with fury. The escape was in reach. But the fight was not over yet. The ship's ramp glowed faint blue in the shadows of the container. Daniel pushed the last child forward, urging them inside, his chest burning with every breath. But the hunters closed in, their weapons raised, their voices cold and sharp. "Subjects, stop. You belong to us," one of them shouted, his metallic tone slicing the night air. Daniel turned, sweat dripping down his face. His fists clenched, though he had no weapon. He knew he could not fight men armed with energy rifles. He knew that if they fired, it would be the end for him, for the children, for the chance of escape. Yet he stood there, refusing to move aside, his body blocking the ramp. The hunters spread out, circling, their boots echoing against the steel floor of the dock. The children cried softly behind him, their glowing eyes weak, almost dim. They had burned too much of their strength during the chase. They were only children now, trembling, gasping, desperate. One of the hunters stepped forward, his rifle aimed directly at Daniel's chest. "You are not part of this, human," he said. "Walk away and you may live." Daniel shook his head slowly, his voice steady even as fear twisted inside him. "They are not things, they are children, and you will not take them." The hunter's helmet tilted, his weapon charging with a deadly hum. Daniel braced himself, ready to take the blast, but then the smallest child stepped forward past Daniel, his glowing eyes suddenly bright again. "No," the boy whispered. "We will not go back." The air around him shifted. Humming with strange energy, blue light poured from his eyes. Brighter than before, the hunter stumbled, his weapon flickering, the red glow snuffed out by the child's strange power. Daniel stared in shock, his body frozen. The other hunters fired, red beams cutting through the night. But the child raised his hand and the beams bent away, splitting into harmless sparks that burned out in the air. The hunters shouted in confusion, their rifles sparking, their armor glitching under the flood of blue light. Daniel shielded his face, the glow burning brighter, brighter, until it felt like the whole dock was swallowed in a storm of light. The smallest boy's voice echoed, not weak now but strong, commanding, "We are not your weapons, we are not your machines. We are alive." The hunters staggered back, their weapons useless, their voices breaking into static. One by one, they fell to their knees, unable to move, frozen under the invisible weight of the power. Daniel lowered his arms slowly, his eyes wide. The boy stood in front of him, glowing like a living star. Behind him, the other children stirred, their glowing eyes brightening again. Fed by his strength, the oldest girl stood, tears running down her glowing cheeks. She whispered, "He has awakened." The youngest always carries the deepest light, but we feared it would destroy him. Daniel looked at her in disbelief. "Destroy him? It looks like he is destroying them." The boy's small body shook, his glow flickering as if the energy was too much to hold. The hunters writhed on the ground, their armor sparking, their voices breaking into cries. Daniel rushed forward, placing his hands on the boy's shoulders. "Stop, you must stop, it will kill you." The boy's glowing eyes turned to him, filled with tears. "If I stop, they will take us. If I stop, we lose." Daniel's heart pounded, torn between fear and awe. He saw the boy trembling, burning with power too great for a child. He whispered, his voice sharp but gentle. "Listen to me, you are not alone, you do not need to carry it all, let it go. We will fight another way," the boy cried, the light flickering dangerously, but Daniel held him tighter. "You are a child," Daniel said. "Not a weapon, not a cage, a child. And you will not burn for them," the boy gasped, his glowing eyes wide, then slowly, painfully. The light dimmed, the storm faded, and the night returned. The hunters lay scattered, their weapons dead, their armor smoking, their bodies stunned but alive. Daniel pulled the boy close, lifting him in his arms, his small body limp with exhaustion. The oldest girl rushed forward, touching the boy's glowing face with shaking hands. "He saved us, but the price was heavy," she whispered. He cannot do it again, not soon. Daniel looked back at the stunned hunters. They were not dead, but they would not stay down for long. He turned to the ramp of the ship, his voice firm. Get inside now. We must leave before more come. The children stumbled forward. Helping each other climb the ramp, Daniel carried the smallest boy. His body light as paper, his glow faint now. The ship hummed as the children touched its panels, the doors closing with a soft hiss. For the first time, Daniel felt a flicker of safety. But only for a moment. Through the small window, he saw lights rising in the distance, more hunters, more machines, more shadows moving toward the docks. The city had seen the light, and the city would not stay quiet. The power had saved them, but it had also called their enemies. Daniel placed the boy gently on a seat, brushing the damp hair from his glowing eyes. The boy whispered weakly, "Did we escape?" Daniel looked at him, then at the others, then at the ship that trembled beneath his feet. He whispered back, "Not yet, but we will." The engines roared. The dock shook and the ship began to rise. Outside, the hunters regrouped, shouting, firing into the air. Red beams chased the rising craft, but the ship's shields flared. Blocking the blasts, the children huddled together, their glowing eyes fixed on Daniel, waiting, trusting. Daniel gripped the controls with shaking hands. His voice steady. "Hold on." The night sky opened above them, filled with stars, and for the first time, Daniel felt that maybe, just maybe, the children had a chance. The power had saved them once. But the journey ahead was only beginning. The ship trembled as it rose from the docks, engines roared, blue flames cutting through the night sky. Daniel held the controls tight, his knuckles white. His eyes locked on the stars above. Below, the hunters shouted, their red blasts flashing like fireworks against the ship's shields. But the craft climbed higher, breaking free from the metal skeleton of the city. Inside, the children huddled together, their glowing blue eyes fixed on Daniel. The smallest boy lay weak in his seat, his glow faint, his breathing shallow. The oldest girl held his hand tightly, whispering words in a language Daniel could not understand. Her voice cracked, her tears glowing faintly as they slid down her pale cheeks. Daniel wanted to ask questions, wanted to demand answers. But right now, survival came first. He pushed the controls forward, guiding the ship out of the lower atmosphere. The hull rattled, the engines screamed. But the craft held finally, the stars spread wide before them. Endless and quiet, the children gasped softly, their glowing eyes reflecting the vast ocean of light. For the first time, they looked less afraid. The girl whispered, "We are out," her voice filled with relief, yet heavy with fear that chased behind. Daniel turned from the window, looking at their thin faces, their trembling hands. "You said this ship is yours. Where does it go?" he asked. The girl looked at him, her glowing eyes steady. "It is not ours, it is freedom. It will take us far from the cages, far from their machines, far from the war they built us for." Daniel frowned. "War? What do you mean?" The boy beside her lifted his head weakly, his voice thin but clear. "They made us to fight, human. They made us to kill." Daniel's chest grew tight, he had suspected. But hearing it in the boy's soft voice broke something inside him. The children shifted uncomfortably, their glowing eyes dimming with shame. The oldest girl spoke again. "We were not born, we were made. Our blood is mixed with things not human, things from the stars. They built us to be stronger, faster, brighter. Weapons in the shape of children." Daniel sat back in his chair, silence pressing heavy around him. Weapons. He looked at their small faces, their trembling bodies, and his heart rebelled at the word. "No," he whispered, "you are not weapons. You are children." The girl shook her head, her voice sharp. "Not to them. To them we are tools, property, numbers on a list. That is why we ran. That is why we hide. Because we do not want to be their war." Her glowing eyes met his, fierce now. "We want to live, human. We want to live as more than what they made us." Daniel's throat tightened. He thought of the hunters, of the cages, of the word subjects. He thought of the boy burning with power too great for his small body. And he thought of the way they looked at him, trusting, hoping, believing. The ship beeped softly, pulling his eyes back to the controls. Warning lights flickered, the fuel levels low. "We cannot run far," Daniel said, his voice steady. "This ship will not take us across the stars." The girl nodded slowly. "We know, but if we reach the outer belts, there are others. There are those who still believe humans will help us." Daniel frowned. "Humans? Why humans?" The boy answered, his weak voice breaking the silence. Because you see us, because you hear us. Because you are not blind like the others. Daniel froze, his mind flashing back to the cafe. Yes, it was true, no one else had looked at them. No one else had noticed them, only him. He whispered, "Why me?" The girl's glowing eyes softened, her voice almost gentle now. Because humans carry something inside. Something they could not copy. Something they feared but could never destroy. Choice, heart, spirit, call it what you wish. It makes you different. Daniel's chest ached at her words. But deep inside, something stirred. Maybe she was right. Maybe this was why they had chosen him. The ship rattled as it passed through the last layer of atmosphere. Stars stretched endless before them. Quiet and cold, the children leaned close together, their glowing eyes reflecting the universe. Daniel whispered, almost to himself, "No one should call you weapons. No one should put you in cages." The girl nodded, tears still shining in her glowing eyes. "We are not weapons. We are not their machines. We are children, and now we are free." Her voice shook, but her words carried strength. Daniel looked at her, then at the youngest boy still weak in his seat, and he knew this freedom was fragile. The hunters would not stop. The war would not stop, but at least tonight, these children had escaped. The ship beeped again. Plotting a course toward the dark edge of the belts, Daniel's hands steadied on the controls. He was no soldier, no hero, only a dock worker, but fate had placed these children in front of him and he could not turn away. He whispered to them, "As long as I breathe, you will not go back. You will not be their tools. Not ever." The children's glowing blue eyes turned to him, shining bright with gratitude. The youngest boy, weak but alive, whispered softly, "Thank you, human, we will never forget." Daniel's heart twisted at the words, his eyes burning. He nodded once, his voice rough but certain, "And I will never forget you." The ship flew into the stars, leaving the burning city far behind. The hunters would come, the war would rise. The future would be dangerous. But for this moment in the quiet of space, 4 children with glowing blue eyes had found hope, and one human had found a purpose he never knew he carried. The revelation was clear now. They were not weapons. They were not subjects. They were children. And they deserved a future. And Daniel would fight to give it to them.